Eagle is a friendly red engine that lives on the island of Sodor. He's mixed traffic, meaning he can pull both freight cars and coaches quite easily. Now it's been some time since Sir Topham Hatt had retired Edward the Blue Engine after his act of bravery after saving the station. Every day, Edward would watch as the bigger engines would leave for work, and he occasionally felt left out. But Eagle was always there, whenever he wasn't working, to tell Edward the news. One day, after Eagle finished his work, he went to visit Edward as usual. But what he saw made him grind to a halt. He saw the big engines all making fun of Edward, and Edward did not look happy. They said,
"The driver won't choose you again. He wants big, strong engines like us."
Eagle could tell that what the other engines were saying hurt Edward deeply, because deep down he knew they were right. He hadn't been out in days. Eagle was so disgusted by this, he left without saying a word. Eagle went to see the Wellsworth and Sudbury tank engines, and told them everything that he had seen and heard. "We are getting greatly outnumbered," said Billy. "I never liked those big engines, especially that 98462. His aura is dark." "Something must be done about this," said Adam. "Those big engines are greatly outnumbering us older, smaller engines, and they think they're so great." They all agreed that something must be done. At last, Eagle had an idea. "I can do that," he said. He whispered his plan to the others. "I'll do it tomorrow." The next morning, Eagle crept into the sheds a little earlier than usual before the real driver and fireman had a chance to get there. Then he whispered to his driver and fireman, "Now, driver, now, fireman." Just then, a driver and fireman appeared to start work. The driver looked at Edward, and dare I mention what he said?
"What's the matter? Are you feeling sad? Would you like to come out today? And Edward said, "Oh yes, please." So the fireman lit the fire and made a nice lot of steam. Then the driver pulled the lever and Edward puffed away. And he blew his whistle. "Look at me. Look 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 at me." The other engines were very cross at being left behind.
A few minutes later, when the real driver and fireman arrived, Eagle told them just how badly the other engines had been treating Edward and everything they said. The driver and fireman agreed, and told the other engines what bad engines they were. So they ended up taking Eagle out instead. And as he left the sheds, he could feel the glare of all the other big engines at him. Thanks to Eagle, Edward had the best day out he'd ever had in a long time. And despite being out of service for several weeks, he performed like a young engine. Edward worked hard all day. The coach's thought he was very kind, and the driver was so impressed he promised he'd take him out again. I don't believe it! 98462 almost shrieked. They let that bucket of bolts Edward out today! I know, chimed in a visiting green engine. I haven't been here that long, but I can see that Edward is an engine with very little power. You got that right, snapped 98462. Sir Topham Hatt should really put him where he belongs, in a museum. Gordon, despite being full of pride himself, knew right from wrong. Edward's design, he said, was useful at one point in time, but then modernization came, and then his design was not so useful, he said. Therefore, bigger tender engines like us were needed, but that does not mean he is any less useful than us in any way. Ha! Talking about Edward, I see, are we? Said Eagle. Yes, said Gordon. I just got finished telling these engines how Edward is a really useful fellow. Good, said Eagle. Then I suggest it be your best interest to keep it that way. Speak of the devil, Eagle continued. I hear that Edward's going out again tomorrow. What do you think of that? 98462, 87546, 76624, and the visiting green engine were all about to argue when suddenly Edward came puffing back into the sheds.
Told the other engines in the shed that night, I'm going out again tomorrow. What do you think of that? But he didn't hear what they thought, for he was so tired and happy that he fell asleep at once.
Don't worry, little Edward. I'll soon show you how important I am when I pull the express tomorrow.